Hello, everyone. Rachel here, one of the co-creators of Rise Gatherings. I am absolutely delighted to be here with Regina Cash Clark, who is a new facilitator on the team for this year's Weekend Getaway, our 2024 Weekend Getaway in the Pocono Mountains in September. And I'll tell you a little bit about Regina first. Regina is a writer and educator who focuses on issues related to social justice and equality. She's also an advocate for women who are living in a state of overwhelm. Who isn't at this point, right? The world is quite overwhelming. Right. She says, since was one of them. So Regina reminds us that doing the most can also do harm. I think that's very important to acknowledge. And that's really only the case if our approach isn't balanced. And so finding balance in our lives is really key to our overall well-being. So welcome, Regina.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for the lovely introduction. I'm delighted to be here.
Tell me a little bit about how you like to work with people, what it is you feel like you're an educator about. And I also want to hear a little bit about what you mean by balance.
Okay, sounds good. Well, from the educator standpoint, it's so interesting. My background is kind of in magazine and the publishing industry, and I just was going for my master's and decided, oh, realized I can teach with this. And I'll admit I was the shy kid growing up, right? I didn't want to speak too much, didn't want to raise my hand too much, and wanted to keep a low profile. But somehow, seems like education and teaching were part of this calling that I wasn't initially aware of. And so, yeah, some years out of maybe a year or so out of grad school, I decided I wanted to, especially through my writing interests and my love of writing, help others and teach others. And so that's how it all began for me. And I actually wanted to start very small, very locally at a community college, helping students who maybe were from, non-traditional families or incomes, and just wanted to help everyone to have a leg up. It's interesting, I ended up at a state college where I have been teaching for about 20 years now, not to date myself too much. And so that's kind of how it all began. And so I've always worked with young adults, teenagers, women are definitely my heart. And as I've aged, hopefully gracefully, I've even been drawn to women who are going through life changes, right? I'm a mom of four, twins plus two, and I've seen kind of all these stages of life, how they can kind of build up and become a challenge. I can remember turning 21 and thinking, okay, this is cool. Turning 25, okay, we're getting there. Somehow 30, they start to tell you you're over the hill, right? And with each decade seemed to come a new challenge. But I'm an optimist, and so I like to share that viewpoint. And so one of my goals is really to help women to really see themselves, right, as strong, powerful, empowered through the various stages of life, 40s, 50s, and above.
Yes,
That's the goal.
absolutely.
That's the goal. I'm obsessed with aging gracefully.
Good.
Into the books, reading the books, and so, yeah, that's where I'm at.
Beautiful. It's very aligned with us here at Rise Gatherings. And, we're a space for women of all ages and life stages. And I'm quite obsessed with honoring aging too, right now, and the
Definitely.
wisdom that comes along with it. I love that you said you love to support people who are going through life changes and life challenges. And I'd love to use that as a segue into being a part of something like the Weekend Getaway. Because we do know that women are drawn to community and supportive resources while they're going through life changes and challenges. So tell me a little bit about, for you personally, why you wanted to be a part of the weekend and why you think retreating is important.
Oh man, because as women, no offense, guys, but as women, so much the way our society is kind of built, so much seems to fall on our shoulders. And I remember being part of various women's groups and just hearing women talk about, how much we have to juggle, and how that's an expectation. I was a proud multitasker, and I realized over time within reason, okay, but that can really get out of hand very quickly. You find yourself burned out. And so I think retreating is especially important for women because we find sisterhood there, we find support, we find resources, we find a day and a time to step away, maybe even turn off that phone, right? I think the kids and the family, somebody can survive for a day without us, right? But honestly, it's a time for us, a time for us to pour into ourselves. And that's kind of how I've looked at 2024 for me, a time to pour into myself, right? I've done so much teaching and teaching of writing, and I love it. I'm actually taking workshops and things that empower me, and that's the same thing I see with the retreat. And so, yeah, we're allowed to have workshops and enjoy workshops that allow others to pour into us the way we've poured into so many for so long. And it's really essential to feeling like you can get away from that sense of burnout, right? Feeling refreshed, renewed, rejuvenated. And I think that is especially important for women.
Yes, 2024, pouring into
Yes, pouring
ourselves,
into myself. I declared it
pouring
on social media.
into
It's official.
myself. I love the visual of that. It's actually so powerful
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we do pour out so
Oh
effortlessly
man,
as
yeah,
women, and
yeah.
just to kind of sit back and allow yourself to receive. And I'm just seeing this like pouring into me,
Right, right.
how that fills us up
And
in
even if
such
you're
ways.
not a mom, I don't wanna leave anyone out. I
Oh
just think,
no.
again, so much even in the workplace, right? We're the note
Yeah.
takers, we're the refrigerator cleaners, we're all these other expectations that are part of the job or the job description seem to be, put on us, right? And so, again, I think it's so important as women to, look for means of getting away, right? Of retreating, of, getting that relaxation that we need. We can do the little things at home, and that's awesome. Took a nice bath today, but
Yeah.
there's a time when you really need to get away, right? And so
Yeah.
that's what it means to me. Definitely, definitely. And I'm so pleased that I'm a part of that. I get to enjoy it as a participant, of course, but also I get to share some of what I enjoy doing. So it's a double bonus for me.
What you will be sharing, as you said, at the Weekend Getaway is a workshop, a writing
Mhm.
workshop.
Mhm.
And your workshop is called Tackling the Overwhelm, Unleashing Your Authentic Writer's Voice.
Yes.
And the piece that that stuck out to me from this in the description was that this is about creative exploration to overcome self-sabotage and perfection.
Oh man.
And
And I hear those words so often.
yes,
I'll start with perfectionism because that's telltale for me. Lifelong perfectionist, overcoming it, right? But again, those are the things that can kind of break us down. And so, first of all, this is for anyone, not just writers. I should put that out there. If you've
mhm,
never written, you don't even enjoy the process. This is just total development, sharing, kind of personal experience and exploration. So, wanted to put that out there. But yeah, so when it comes to perfectionism, that can, it's nice to a point, right? But it also can wear you out and wear you down. There has to come a point in time, and that's writing is a great example of that, right? If you're ever going to get anything published or out there, there's got to come a point where you just let it go. We have to stop, release, and let it go. And for me, that perfectionism was always something that kind of hounded me. And it's great in the workplace. There's excellence. There's lots of good that can come out of it. But again, there's a point where you just have to pause, right? And let it go, release. And so that's what, and then the self-sabotage. I know that it can affect anyone, but I think for women, that's big for us.
because some of it is like our ingrained coping mechanisms,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about how you would define that, or what are the ways for women to
Yeah.
identify their
Yeah.
self-sabotage
That's a good point.
patterns.
Yeah. How do, because we may not always catch it. For me, it means where you have goals, you have things that you're working on, things are kind of going on the upswing, things are going well. Then all of a sudden you feel a little bit uneasy. It's as if you're kind of uncomfortable with being happy or being satisfied or something doing well, and all of a sudden you find yourself doing something that goes against it, right? That kind of knocks you down a few notches. I mean, it can be by any means. I mean, the extreme would be things like drugs and things that are promote self-harm, but it can be something as simple as, I don't know, saying no to a great opportunity that you've been working towards because all of a sudden you freeze up and you're like, maybe I'm not ready, right? Talking yourself out of things that you really want and you
Mm.
want. So I think that is an example of how we often, find ourselves falling into that sense of self-sabotage. Opportunities are presenting themselves, things are opening up, and somehow it's like we don't feel we deserve it. That's kind of what it often comes down to, where we obviously do, but something in us sometimes tells us that we don't deserve it. It's not going to go well. Something's going to go wrong. So we find ourselves saying no or missing out on really great opportunities. That's one way I see it.
I think it's important to just acknowledge that that is actually a part of life. It's a
Yeah,
part of the human
yeah,
experience to
yeah.
have fear
And
of
not being
change.
afraid to fail within that.
Yes, or fear of failure.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Or even fear of
Learning the art of
success.
failing forward, right? Failure is
Mm.
and maybe because I'm kind of an artist, like an underground artist, and I love art. And so in art, failure there is no failure. It's just another direction. It's and as a perfectionist, that was big for me. And I think art helped me with that. You're painting something, you're drawing something, I don't know, you slip, you make a mark, something gets messed up. Instead of throwing it away, let's see what we can do with this. Let's see how we can build upon this whole new route, a whole new avenue that we can explore. Teaching that to teenagers like my daughter. I have one daughter and three boys who's got a little bit of that perfectionist spirit as well, where it's okay. It's okay to mess up, right? We fail forward. And there are failures where we may pay the price, there may be consequences, but just fail forward, move through it, and learn from it. That's the most important thing to me, always to learn from that. And so as a risk taker, I try to be, right? It's easier to say sometimes than to do, but sometimes taking those risks and knowing, okay, something could go wrong here. Something may go wrong here, but it's all a part of the process. So I think if we set ourselves up, have the right mindset going in, then it's not a disaster. Like we expect, okay, something's probably gonna go wrong. There may be, a
Hmm.
little glitch along the way, but we'll just push through it. And to give yourself that space and forgive yourself at those times as well.
Beautiful, long life lesson.
Yeah,
Learning
hopefully.
throughout all of the ages, as you said,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
different ways. Yes.
yeah. And we
So
build on that as we age gracefully too.
that helps us to age gracefully too,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Yes.
yes.
All right. So you have an upcoming online workshop on March 21st that we're really looking forward to, which is free to everyone.
Mhm.
And your workshop is writing through the pain. And
Yes.
this is about really using your challenges as your source of inspiration.
Yeah, I'm excited
Share a
about that.
little. Yeah, share about it and what people receive when
Definitely.
they come.
Definitely. So one thing I like to tell my students is that as writers, we tend to channel things, right? And we put it on the page. For this workshop, again, you don't have to be a writer. I just want to put that out there. Maybe have a piece of paper, a journal, or something you want to scribble things down with. But it's the idea that our subconscious is always working. Even when we're repressing feelings, repressing things, not wanting to deal with them, our subconscious is always at work, right? And so writing allows us, whether it's free writing, and free writing is just sitting down, scribbling down whatever's on your mind, not using punctuation, not thinking about it, just scribbling it all down. Those are kind of our brain dump kind of activities, right? Those are some of the ways in which we can, release a lot of the tensions and the stressors and the uh, anxieties, right, that may beset us. And so through this workshop, I'm talking a little bit about that, especially though this idea of, channeling a lot of the feelings and the things that we may not be able to express through our writings. And it's so interesting sometimes the most random exercise. I like giving writing prompts and exercises. Sometimes the most random exercise, I'll hear students say, I didn't plan to go in that direction, or I didn't really know that was on my mind. So I think writing helps us to get better in touch with our feelings, and what's really going on. Sometimes it's just to clear our head, right? Maybe we're very private, there's nobody we really can talk to. So writing can kind of be a part of that process. And so the way I look at it, the way I think about it is, writing through the pain. When we think of pain, there are a lot of different things that can cause us pain. Oftentimes it's connected to some sort of loss. Loss can be, of course, loss of a person, but it can be loss of a job, loss of a relationship, a friendship, loss of a marriage. And so looking at pain even from that respect of having lost something, how do we express that? How do we again channel that, and turn it out, flip it somehow to be positive? And I've also talked and written about this idea of deep grief, right? You know, one of my most recent issues is that it's the 5-year anniversary. My younger sister passed away. And so it was really interesting to see through that grief cycle how it affected my writer's life, right? And so, although you know, I'd say there's this strange element with me where a lot of the time my most poignant writing, right, my voice gets most true and real when I'm going through something. And so it took a few months, right? There was the grief, there was the just the shock and the grief of really dealing with that loss. But I realized after a few months kind of the writer in me was itching to get out. And again, it was a way for it was self-expression for me because that's my
Yeah.
tool, right? That's what I do, that's who I am. And so yeah, I feel like it took my writing to another level. So sort of thinking about it in that way. And I've kind of talked to my students about that. You know, what are some of the things that can add meaning to your writing, right? How do you make your writing more powerful? And it's usually writing about the things that make us a little bit vulnerable. But those are the exact things that people can connect with. Those are the things that resonate for other people. Like, wow, she's really writing about this, or wow, she's talking about this. And you know, it's not something that's shameful or should be hidden, right? And so even when we're talking about mental health and protecting our mental health and improving it, right? Subjects that were taboo. And so it's been interesting that process for me. And, you know, I feel like, you know, loss and grief, pain, they cut through a lot of the garbage that we have to deal with every day and force us to kind of deal with a lot of the things that we may be repressing, suppressing, and kind of examining ourselves in a new way. Especially again, that deep loss, man, it brings up questions that you might not have thought of before. You know, who am I? Why am I here? When you lose somebody close to you, it kind of reminds you that life is short, right? And life can be cut short. And all of a sudden, there's usually, you know, there can be, and we've heard of the stages of grief, there are different things that we deal with, but there's oftentimes this sense of needing more, needing to do more, needing to maybe be more. And so I think all of those are the positives, ironically, that can come out of these painful events that happen to us in life. And so I guess as an optimist, that's how I look at it. We're all going to unfortunately have painful moments, deal with pain. What are we going to do with it afterwards, right? We have to deal with it at that time. We have to get through it. But what are we going to do with what it has brought up in us, what it has maybe done to us? How do we move forward and push forward? And I've just known a lot of the women who've dealt with everything from divorce to separation to again, could be loss of a friendship, you know, family estrangement, all types of issues, right, that bring us pain. And so the question becomes, well, what am I going to do with this right now? Because another thing, when we talk about aging gracefully, one thing I've learned is that, man, if we keep that stuff, you know, inside, it can cause real illness, right? It can really
Yeah.
cause harm to our bodies,
Yes.
and anything from ulcers to cancer. I mean, there are all kinds of things that, at least loosely, right, can find some of their roots and what we're not expressing, what we're dealing with and not really dealing with, right, in a healthy
Yes.
way. And so that's another reason it's so important to me for us to protect our physical and mental health as women. And I think writing can be one of those tools. Again, doesn't matter if you're a writer. No one may ever look at this, and that's fine other than you. But yeah, getting it out in a healthy way.
And it's a something we were all born with the ability
Yes.
to to have this as a tool to express.
Mhm,
And I
mhm,
love thinking, I hear you talking mental health as
mhm,
well, and emotional health. I love thinking about writing as being, your hand being directly connected to your heart. And you spoke of the
mhm,
subconscious and the things that we hold and carry and don't
mhm,
really feel as supported to process. And
mhm.
um, it's using our own self
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the
yeah.
tools that we have
And I
to
like what you say about
be
that
with.
writing. Yeah, with the heart,
Yeah, to
right?
be
Because I'm
with.
old-fashioned. We can use the keyboard. I do a lot of writing on the laptop,
No,
right? That's my best friend.
over
But
the
it's
keyboard.
really, really, really where you get into with your feelings when you get that journal, got that paper out, and you're scribbling, you're writing. it's a different process. I really believe that when we're putting pen to paper, that it allows our minds to get to work and we're processing things in a different way. Because I often say some of my best work is what I've done longhand, right? Some of then I type it up and I process it all over again, and then I edit it and
Yes.
kind of stage two. But getting it down on paper, writing it out, I don't care, pencil, pen, marker, whatever, comfortable for you, highlighter even. But using your hands, right? Going through those motions. Yeah, there's something to that. I mean, it really
Mhm.
does connect us, I think, even more with our feelings and what we have to say.
Well, Regina, thank you so much for being here today
My
and for
pleasure.
sharing your wisdom and your, I want to say, like, beauty that just radiates from within. You just
Oh,
have this, I could feel that source of light coming from your heart, and really it's indicative of your passion that you feel for what you do in the world and
thank
with your
you so
time.
much. I am
And
just again so honored to have been invited. So thank you so much for that.
And you can connect with Regina at her upcoming workshop on March 21st, and then also be with her in person and many other facilitators just like her in a community of 150 women in the Pocono Mountains in September this year at our annual weekend getaway.